So first, just want to welcome everybody and thank everybody for being here. Obviously, this is our 10th season, and it's kind of remarkable to look back on the fact that it's going to be a decade of Thunder basketball in Oklahoma City, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that we're really grateful for all of our players and their contributions, past and present. Obviously, the players are what make it all possible, and our coaches, past and present, all the staff members, everybody that's contributed to the identity of the franchise, and that also extends, clearly to our fans, our supporters, our sponsors, as well as everybody here in the media and the relationships that have been built and forged. We're just incredibly grateful for what Oklahoma City has been to us, and we're inspired to continue to build off this foundation and continue to try to make the Thunder something that the city is proud of and honors. So I want to make sure that I start with that. With respect to this season, obviously we're thrilled. We're really excited heading into the season to have the opportunity to acquire a player like Paul George, and just what he brings to the table as a player was a unique opportunity for us, and we're really excited to see him in our uniform and with our players and walking the halls. He just plays the right way, and we think he adds a dimension to the team that's pretty rare. So we're really excited about him being a part of our group, as well as Felton, Patterson. Those guys continue to add maturity and toughness and dependability, and we're really excited about those guys taking the floor with us. Terrence Ferguson, another player that's new to the group. We're excited about his potential and the work that he's been able to do with our coaching staff over the last couple months. And then, anytime we have the opportunity to retain a player like Dre, Nick Collison, those guys are just, I don't know how else to describe them other than they're Thunder guys. And it's great to have those guys back. And then, Dakari and Daniel Hamilton, guys that have been with our Blue program, have gone through the draft process with us, are in kind of the pipeline as younger players. We're really excited about those guys kind of being assimilated into the organization. And then, the development of our current roster. Obviously, having Russell coming off the season that he just came off of is amazing. Steven and the trajectory that he's continued to show from year to year. McDermott, Breenish, Grant, those guys have some playoff experience now, which is pretty unique for their ages. And I'm sure I'm leaving out some people, but it's exciting time for us, and we're excited to start the season. With that being said, I think that the thing that we're kind of really focused on is understanding that anytime you have a team that undergoes the type of change that we've undergone, there's going to be a period where it's going to probably be a little messy. It's going to take some time for us to figure some things out. I can probably write the stories for you guys now when we lose a couple games or we drop a game that many people think we should win. We get that. That's all part of it. But what we can't do is shortcut the end game, the long game, which is to make sure that by game 82 we're playing our best basketball. We've kind of looked at the different combination and the different combinations of players, understand our roster, understand our schemes, and it's going to take some time to get those things ironed out early on for sure, just like any team that undergoes some change, and there's plenty of teams in the league that are going through that. Billy and his staff have been incredible this summer. They have worked their tails off. I'm really excited to see those guys work with this group of players. The one thing about our coaching staff is they're as prepared as any group that I've ever been around, and they care deeply, not just about our team and our players, but they love hoops. They love basketball, so they keep each other company really well that way. And then, one of the other things I think that's important for the season is obviously, there have been some changes to the roster. But the same things that we talked about at the end of the season, last year, fundamentally, I think continue to be kind of the measure of the team, which is, I've said this before, but I think more games in the league are lost than won. And most of the time that comes down to just fundamentals. And the same things that win, over at John Marshall High School and, Southern Nazarene College and, OCCC, as well as, a big-time Division I school or an NBA team, that all the same things apply. It's hard to be a really good team if you're turning the ball over a lot. It's hard to be a really good team if you're putting the other team on the free throw line a lot. It's hard to be a consistent team if you're giving up a lot of, uncontested layups, in the half court or in transition, and if the ball's not moving before you attack the defense. So if we can, continue to make progress in those areas, I think it's only going to amplify the group that we have in place. And I think we've got a really interesting group from the standpoint of dynamics, age, toughness, and then versatility. So, we're really, focused on how we can not just, get better, but also be really strong fundamentally. That's what kind of holds you together, I think, over 82 games when you go through those peaks and valleys. And when you get to the postseason, that's when the bedrock of stuff really shines through. Before I open up for questions, I also think it's important just to say that, with respect to, the season that we have, obviously in a few days on Tuesday, we got to put our attention on just that day and understand that, we have to take care of each day by day. But I also think that we're really excited about the potential for this team over the long term. We feel that this team, is kind of at a launching point to continue to grow and get better, as I said before, due to the age of the team, the versatility of the group, and the upside that we think the team has over time. So, we're going to go and kind of focus in on the day and the season, but we also feel like it's an incredible platform and opportunity for the future of the team, and we're really excited about both this season and beyond. So with that, I'll open it with any questions.
Sam, Kevin's unfortunate tweet the other day, how was that received here, particularly by you and Billy?
Totally understand the question. I think, the only thing I can say to that, Barry, is just to be consistent with everything that I have said and everyone else, from the organization. Like, I and no one from the Thunder really has anything negative to say about Kevin Durant. And he, I think we've been hopefully very open about the fact that we have tremendous appreciation and respect for what he and his teammates and coaches and everybody over his tenure here accomplished. And I really don't think there's anything more to say other than that.
Has he reached out to you personally?
No.
Or anybody in the organization?
I can't speak. It's not something that I'm not asking people that question. I maybe he has, but I can't tell you that he has.
Are you concerned that Russ hasn't signed an extension yet?
Again, you guys know how we feel about, those types of situations. We're going to let that play itself out. And, as we've said, he has and we have until the 16th of October, to be permitted to sign that. And, we're going to have that offer on the table, as long as it's permitted to be there. And obviously we're hopeful that that takes place. But until the 16th passes, I'm not going to put like a label or adjective or anything like that on it.
How much have you thought the what-if game if he doesn't sign? During the season, what you played out?
Sure. Probably not quite as much as you guys have. But, listen, I think it'd be easy for me to sit here and speculate and create a million narratives, but I don't think that's really productive. I think, let's get to the 16th, and, if we get to the 16th, we'll get our answer, and then we'll move from there.
Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is from an outside perspective 2 years ago, but it seemed like Kevin's last year here, that was not a big distraction. His impending free agency did not seem to impact the team. Are you confident that you're going to be where Russell and Paul could both be free agents? Are you confident that won't be a distraction? Is there anything you learned 2 years ago that applies here?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a great question, Brett. I think, one thing I would say is that, and when I said this at the end of the season, I think Durant deserves an incredible amount of credit for the fact that, irrespective of what might have been going on or all the different pressure he was under at that time, he never let it get in the way of what we had to do on the floor. I thought that was a credit to him. And obviously we had our best season probably in franchise history. And that doesn't happen without everybody in the building kind of pulling together, understanding like what we have to do as professionals, kind of blocking out the noise, so to speak, within the building, and doing our job. And I thought that was a great, it was a great season for the Thunder as a whole. But every season's different. Everybody's different, and I can't predict how that's going to go. I just know that we have to keep our eye on the ball. And as I said before, it's the fundamentals. I think there's organizational fundamentals, right? And I think there's on-court fundamentals. And organizationally, we try to operate with class, dignity, and poise, and that allows us to be the best version of ourselves.
It's the second straight season where you're going in after major off-season on the team or major rework in the roster. What do you think that your staff was able to learn from last year that's going to be a help with this year?
Paul George would help a lot. No, I think honestly, I think last season was a really, really important season for us as an organization and a franchise. I'm incredibly proud of what took place last season. I thought that it was a very resolute approach. I thought that our guys played their hearts out. Obviously, Russell stabilized everything and gave us everything he possibly could. And I think he inspired a lot of people in a city, quite frankly, with the way he handled that situation. And I thought our team, battled their hearts out. I do think that the coaches did the right stuff by not locking themselves into one thing, but trying to continue to. We learned about Alex Abrinish a ton, and it would have been easy to just not say he was ready to play, but he earned his way through the season and was playing his best basketball at the end of the season. They integrated McDermott, after the trade deadline and got him on the floor with Alex. Jeremy Grant, again, a lot of these players were kind of coming through the season. We were, it was a disrupted beginning to the season, off season, etc. But I think I keep using this phrase, but we kept our eye on the ball. We tried to do the things that we thought would help us put us in position to be the best team we could. And I thought it was a great year with respect to just kind of how we conduct ourselves and the fact that we need to go to work every day and there's nothing promised. Going into this season, as I said before, I think the certain fundamentals that every good basketball team has to kind of be good at and abide by. I don't think there's any secret to anyone that's sitting in the room, but the better we can get in those aspects, the more it amplifies the dynamic players that we have, the more solid we can be under stressful situations on the road. Because you're going to have peaks and valleys. You can't live in a highlight, it's not 48 minutes of Sports Center, right? There's something that has to tie it all together, and that comes down to the same things that, as I said before, every team that plays has to be good at.
Sam, you have two all-NBA level defenders on the perimeter. What impact do you think having them, both of them on the floor at the same time, or being able to kind of give one a breather will make on the season? I'm not sure we've really had two guys like that.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of exciting to think about. I think just in general, just the size and the length of the different combinations that Billy can use, it's really exciting. Dre and Paul, I think maybe the toughest thing about that is going to be the battle between the two of them as to who gets to guard the best player, but that's what makes great defenders. So, exciting just because of the size and the length that, Paul kind of interjects into the team and kind of I don't know. I think it helps connect a lot of the different pieces that we have, as we talked about, over the summer when we introduced ball. So that's exciting. We're looking forward to seeing that on the court. But as I said before, it's going to take some time to take the names on the paper and make them a functional team. And there's just no way to skip those steps. And my hope would be that we don't try to do that.
Sam, you mentioned Alex a minute ago. It looks like he's gained some weight, improved muscle mass. Your reaction to that, and is he healthy? Are you concerned with a knee issue that he had over here?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, just because I can kind of go through the health. I don't know what they call that in football, but injury. Well, no, but isn't that something? Anyway, sorry. Shows you how much I'm watching football. So a greenish bone bruise. And I think we caught it at the right time. You don't want to be playing on that once you've done it. He's progressing well. I think everyone here knows we're going to be pretty conservative with the way we transition players back on the floor, especially with a shortened training camp, especially with less preseason games. That again is something new for us that we're trying to figure out how to make sure we manage. Same thing with like two-way contracts, and so there's some new things that we're making sure that we're trying to think about. Patrick Patterson progressing. Again, I don't know that he's going to get some preseason games in, most likely, but we want to make sure he's feeling really good about where he's at physically, and he's new to us, so we want to try to understand his body, and that relationship between medical staff and players is really, really important. We want to make sure that that's growing and flowering out. And then Westbrook had a PRP injection a few days ago, so he's going to miss the first few days of camp just to make sure that settles itself down. He had that in a right knee patella tendon, unrelated to any. Just to save the questions, unrelated to any, past injuries, but just to make sure, I think he really wanted to make sure he took care of that in advance, so it wasn't something that lingered through the year, but not anything serious, and, we'll work him back in, I think, as we get through camp and see how he's doing, but he'll play in some preseason games as well, et cetera, et cetera. So, as of right now, like those are kind of the things that we got. I'm always hesitant because someone could, knock on wood, someone could stub a toe in there right now, but that's what we got, and we think that by the end of the preseason we should be in pretty good shape, have everybody on the floor.
Will Patterson actually practice on Tuesday, or will you hold him back?
Myron, I think the plan is at this point, a lot depends on just kind of how he continues to progress, but the plan would have him to go through different parts of practice, but probably not everything. And most importantly, I think as we get started with a new group, I think a big part of the first couple of days is going to be probably a lot of concepts, teaching, and I don't think Billy's going to roll it out there, and I think there's going to be more probably strategy and tactics will be talked about, vision and things like that. So he'll take part in that part of it, and then slowly probably progress into more contact and things like that. But we're not going to push him out there because we've got a long season in front of us, and we got to make sure that we set ourselves up to be able to handle 82 games.
One of the things Kevin said in his tweet was that all they had was him and Russ. That's a common mentality for fans wanting to look at a bunch of superstars and thinking you have to stack a team with that to win a championship. Is that a faulty way of thinking? Can you win without having a bunch of superstars?
Well, I mean, history would show that you can, but again, I don't want to speak directly to those comments. I've talked about it, as I said before. I don't want to bore everybody, but yeah, sure. I mean, I think the league and I don't know the right way to phrase it. The league is in transition. It's but that's what happens all the time. League is always changing. The rules are always changing. There's so many different dynamics and forces at work that drive a lot of these different things. All I can tell you is the way we've always looked at it is our job is to take the circumstances, try to understand them the best we can, you know, and try to work as hard as we can to put the team in position to have a chance to contend and a chance to continue to grow. But I can't really speak to one way to do things or two different ways to do things. I think you have to focus on, you know, yourself and being the best version of yourself and understanding, you know, what your options are and how you work from there.
So some of you gotten to spend just getting to know a little bit about Paul George and what have you learned about him maybe that you didn't know?
Well, one thing I can tell you is I really like him. He's a mature guy. You know, he can talk, you know, about different things. You know, he has, I don't know, there's something about him to me that's really just kind of like sturdy and stable, and he's I don't know, I mean, he's been in the league for a little while now, so, and he's seen a lot of things, and I think he's got a nice confidence about him, you know, which I really like. And you know, and I've got a chance to meet his family too, and I think they're a big reason why he's probably the way he is. I think they're really nice people. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really I'm looking forward to getting to know him better. I don't want to sit here and tell you that I know everything about him, but that's kind of the beauty of the process that we're going through now, and we get to be together more often, and I'm excited for him to get to know the people in the organization and vice versa.
Sam, what's been your stance on potential draft lottery reform?
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, there's a significant effort, I think, to on the part of the league to try to address the perception, you know, of what people call tanking, and you know, you have to trust that the process that is being taken to try to highlight the issues is being handled the right way by the right people, and you know, I think there's a lot of really big issues in the league that deserve a lot of attention, and then there's this one as well, which I'm not discrediting, but you know, hopefully the majority of teams in the league are not. Hopefully they're paying attention.
Sam, earlier you spoke about with the changes to the roster that there might be some pitfalls here and there and some rises and falls. But with the years of chemistry between Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, are you confident that with the addition of Paul George, that the chemistry can be built much quicker with Russell having seen him and Kevin Durant play together at the same time?
You know, I don't think that I would say that I'm confident because of that, because I just think the one thing you got to remember with respect to teams, players, etc., they're made up of people, and everyone's different, and and all of us are different every single day. We go through something and experience. So yeah, just because Russell has played with another really good player, doesn't mean that it's going to be a similar process. I think you have to let that kind of take its shape and take its form, and I do think that they complement each other incredibly well. I do think that the mentalities that they share are very aligned in respect to just like competition and killer instinct. You know what I mean? Like, I just think there's similarities there. But the one thing about Paul that I think that'll be good for our team and continues to move forward is he just kind of plays the right way. Like, he does a lot of things really well. As does Durant. Is one of the best players in the league. We were just, we feel really fortunate that we're able to acquire him, that he's going to be in our uniform, I just think he does a lot of different things really, really well, and I think he's somewhat under. Kind of like I don't know, I don't want to say underappreciated, but I don't think I'm excited for our fans to see how good he is, because he brings a lot to the table, and I think that only helps Russell, and I feel like the team is much better in terms of like just complementary nature for Russell and Paul.
Sam, a couple days ago, Ennis made an allusion that the team he kind of figured out his travel situation in regard to Mexico City and Toronto this year. Can you give us a little bit more or shed a little bit more light on that and how that's being handled?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation in the sense that it's it's basketball, but it's real life, and that's the most important thing. We don't really control the governments and politics and things of that nature. I can tell you that the NBA has been great, and they understand how important it is that we have these things taken care of, if they can be taken care of. I don't want to speak to an endpoint because there's a lot of time that happens between now and then. We're certainly hopeful that everything will be taken care of, but the league is hard at work at trying to make that possible. But when I tell you there's certain things you can control and certain things that you can't control, this is one thing that we don't control. But we're going to work with Ennis and work with the league to make sure that we've done everything we can to make sure he can go with us.
Sam, you've seen Russell Westbrook whenever you drafted him. Can you talk about his growth now, where he's on Kimmel and he's on Fallon, he's on Ellen, and just like not only being the face of the organization, but the face of the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know what else to say about him. I mean, I've said this many times, but like, I wish I could tell you that any of us had any idea that he would become the player that he has developed into. So we've by no means expected this. We certainly hoped that he'd turn out to be a really good player, but his commitment and work ethic, and I think his character, those things combine to make a unique personality and person that allows him to be different. And that to me is what I was talking with someone this morning about these great players in the league, and number one, they're very, very hard to acquire, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But they're also, what makes them so great is they're all so different and unique for different reasons, right? I mean, if they were all great at the same things or built the same way or thought the same way, they wouldn't be different. They wouldn't stand out so much, but they are unique, and I think he's a unique guy. And we're very fortunate that, we've gone on this ride with him for so long. But I also think it's great that he has these other things that he's invested in. His foundation and the fashion component to his world. It's great. So I'm happy for him, and obviously his family and growing family. So we care about him a great deal. We love him. I'm happy for him. I think it's good for the league. Obviously, he stands for something in Oklahoma City that I can't put into words.
Sam, where does he, from your perspective, where does he go from here as a player after triple-double average and MVP?
I don't know, I mean, obviously the season, I said this before, I think I said this last year, I thought last season, as much as it was a physical accomplishment, I thought it was more of a mental accomplishment, but that's when you have someone with the mentality of whose slogan is "Why not?" then I guess, they live that on a daily basis. But I don't know. I mean, with Russell, like he's always going to find ways to get better, and I thought he through the season got better last year, and I still think he's going to continue to improve. I thought one of the things the reasons why he continued to evolve last year is because the circumstances clearly changed, and so he had to go into a mode of figuring out how to help the team. And how he could, get better himself, and he did both those things. And obviously, the circumstances have changed again. I think it's only going to bring out, another opportunity for him to expand, what he does to impact winning. And I'm pretty confident that he's going to do that. That's what the great players do.
Season starting a little bit earlier, 2 weeks earlier than normal, obviously to alleviate, I guess, back-to-backs. Has that ever been a problem with the Thunder playing back-to-backs, and how do you see this working out, some of the measures working out this year?
Sure. Well, I think the league office does a really good job. Number one, the league office and a guy named Tom Corelli is the person that does the schedule. You know, one of those people, just like we have here, that does all the work, does everything, and gets no recognition. So Tom Corelli it's incredible. And the thing I think the league did that was really smart is they listened to the teams. They listened to the players, the people that are actually, you know, having to go out there and play every night, having to go out there and coach every night. It wasn't strictly just an economic, financial decision. I thought it was in the best interest of basketball, the product, and making sure that, you know, you had some nights where you'd have fans that wouldn't have any idea that a team just got in at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning. They're playing on national TV against a team that hasn't played in 3 days, and it looks like it. We had a game like that this past year against Chicago, where you know, the schedule was really challenging for the month, but that last part was really tough. And it was a home game, it was a national team TV game, and our guys were, I mean, they were because they're professionals, they busted their tail, but there is a point where, you know, they're tired. And that, you know, I think the league realizes that in order to put the fans in a position to see something that's, you know, competitively balanced, you got to try to do your best to balance the schedule. And they listened, and they did a really good job. And, you know, of course, you know, there's going to be gripes here and there in people's individual schedules, but, you know, player wellness and health, you know, putting the best product on the floor for the fans, I think they accomplished those things. And, you know, that's a credit to them, because they listened to the people actually kind of in the field, and they adjusted.
Your thoughts on emphasizing some rules? One, if you want to call it James Harden rule.
Mm-hmm.
I think they watched your series against Houston, and then also the stepping underneath.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the competition committee. Although this is my last term, my term is just ending. And I do want to say, like, how grateful I am to have been asked to serve on that committee. You know, David Stern and Adam Silver, you know, the opportunity to serve on those committees, and the fact that they actually engender and want you to speak your mind, to disagree with them, and that, you know, with no retribution, you know, with no politics and things like that. You know, that's not a normal thing. They want to know what you really think. They don't want you to just kind of go along with them. They want you to. They embrace that, like, idea of thinking and thought and diversity of opinion, and that's the kind of stuff I like to be around. And I've learned so much from being in the room with all the different people there. So that I'd like to say publicly. And then, yeah, I mean, they're looking at those things. You know, when you have when you have coaches in the room like Brad Stevens and Rick Carlisle, Doc Rivers, those are the guys that are on the committee now, and to hear them talk about some of this stuff is fascinating. And I really kind of defer to them when it comes to those types of things, when they come to the business components or the team building aspects. You know, obviously, RC, myself, Masai, you know, we kind of take the lead on some of that stuff, but I think it's great that the league is looking into those things. I'd love if they had looked into that maybe before the playoff series we played. That was 9 free throws a game, but no, you know, listen, as I've said before, great players figure out the game and force you to look at these things and how to address them. And, like, to me, that's why I think, again, going back to the great player thing, like, great players, you know, they're unique and they're smart, and I see them all as, like, artists, truly, like, and so the fact that there's got to be something addressing some of these things, you know, only speaks to one of two things. One, the players are getting so much better and learning and pushing the limits and pushing the boundaries, and the league has to adjust a little bit on the court. Or there's a safety issue, like the one that they're trying to address. A lot of it's the advent of the three-point shot, though. and the value of the three-point shot and the emphasis that's being placed on that, and the way the defenses are having to adjust and the things the coaches are asking them to do. I think it's a more global, and this, to bore you, Myron, but like these are the types of things I really think the committee needs to be focused on, is like where is the game headed? And you can predict some of the issues that you're going to have, both from a team building standpoint, revenue standpoint, from a rules and enforcement standpoint, a lot because of like the trends within the game. And it's going to change again. It's not going to stay the same. It never has.
What's the next step with the league in regard to, if they even can, regulating tampering?
I don't know. That's not a topic that's been raised with the competition committee. So I can't really speak to what their tolerance is for that or how they see it. It's not all peach baskets and pom-poms in the NBA. We know that. There's a business to it. But again, like, the thing that the league is really focused on is the integrity of the league, and obviously, they have to decide the things in which they're going to focus on, and they have a large amount of those things to focus on. That can be one of them, but there's also other things, and like it's really up to them to prioritize what's important to them and how it affects the greater good and the integrity of the sport and the league.
Houston, Minnesota, Denver, big moves in the off season. How much tougher do you see the West being with those moves?
Well, I mean, the Western Conference. I've been in the league now since 2000. If you want to say I was in the league in 2000, I was an intern with the Spurs at that time. But since I've been in the league, the Western Conference has been really, really good. I have so much respect for the teams, all the teams obviously, but the teams in the West and how good they are, and the coaching and my peers and just how hard they work and how smart they are. But the Western Conference is a bear, and I think you can't create more wins. There's a finite amount of wins in the league. The West is the West makes it hard. I think the other thing is that we're not in a situation where you've got the top 16 teams in the league playing in the postseason. You've got 8 and 8, and so we're also failing to realize that there's probably 2 or 3 or 4 teams in the West over the last several years that are really good teams that don't get to play in the postseason. And that is, that's a tough thing, because, if it was a top 16 type deal, then, you'd have the 16 best teams by record. You also have to go through the West, through a regular season and then go into the postseason. So just getting through those 82 is tough. I also think, though, it makes you a better team because you're playing great competition every night in the NBA. But you're also playing the best teams in the West, and it's forcing you to raise your level of play. And that's why I think sometimes, like, we always look at how we're playing, and we don't judge. Although I wouldn't ask anyone else to do this because it's not the way the world works. But we're looking not just at the outcome, but we're looking at how the outcome came about. There's games where we play exceptionally well and we lose the game, but we feel pretty good about where we're at in certain aspects because it's such a long season, it's such a long game. And there's nights where we don't play well and we might find a way to win because, as I said before, more games are lost than won in the league because it's a tough league. But the Western Conference makes you have to kind of clock in every single day. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if anyone here is from the Northeast, but when I was growing up, there was a commercial, and it was of a guy at Dunkin' Donuts, and it was all the guy said, "It's time to make the donuts." Anyone see that? To me,
they had that down here too.
That commercial though?
Yeah. National.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Not that same guy though. Same guy? Yeah. So to me, the West is we gotta wake up every day, and you gotta clock in. You gotta make the donuts every day here because it's a great thing to be a part of, and it only makes you better competing against the best. You know, so that's how I look at it.
Top 16 make it, regardless of conference?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Adams talked a lot about the limitations, you know, to that. But I do think that would address some of the issues with respect to like what their perception is of tanking. You know what I mean? I think some of it is like team management and you know, rewarding the teams in giving the best 16 teams the opportunity to play. I think that engenders better competition. And there's so many smart people in the league office. I mean, they'll probably look at that and tackle it, and you know, maybe one day they'll deal with it. Probably not in the near term. But I do think that raises the level of competitive balance as we talk about. And I know that, again, like they want ideas and they want diversity of thought, but I know that's been raised several different times. I think there are some limitations as Adam sees it, but there are smart minds up there, and maybe that's a way to increase the level of competitive balance and maybe generate some different interests, quite frankly. You know, that as we continue to grow the game.
Sam, you guys were, by most measures, one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league last year. How important was it to address it, and how confident are you you have addressed that to some extent?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to address it. The issue is with that is, you know, there's those guys are not growing on trees, as we know, and then there's though, you know, in order to get those guys, you generally have to give up different things, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like as we talked about at the end of last season, we had 4 guys, I think, under the age of 24. You know, I don't think any that shot 38% or better. Obviously, Victor is not with us. He was one of them. But, you know, Patterson, Paul George, and then the improvement of, I mean, obviously Alex, Doug, the improvement of some of our other players as well. You know, I think it's something everyone works on today's game. You know, I think coaching is so good, and development is so important that, you know, if you can find a way to internally develop your roster to improve, you know, anybody, it gives you so much more flexibility for team building and lineups and things of that nature. I think the best teams are the teams that develop through the season, both individually and system-wise. You know, and I do think we've become a better three-point shooting team on paper, but you know, the ball's still got to go in. And we had a guy last year in Amo, one of the most consistent three-point shooters in the league over the last 6 or 7 years, who just didn't have a great shooting year. You know, and you know, that's going to happen. So you got to live with that. Over the long run, though, stuff bears itself out. Obviously, you know, adding McDermott for the full season will make a difference, and it also comes down to the type of shots that the players are taking, and how open they are. You know, because you know, is a big difference in terms of the percentages of who's contested, who's moderately contested, and who's uncontested. And there's only a few guys that shoot it really, really well contested, and those are the names you know. You know, and then there's guys that shoot a lot of them, you know, and they'd only go in periodically, but we all remember the ones that go in, you know, because they may go in timely. So I think the way you got to look at that stuff is just rather analytically, you know, take the emotion out of it. Understand that over time the trends, you know, the numbers usually tend to bear themselves out, and hopefully we've improved it for us.
Sam, you traded for Paul George, a significant talent upgrade, but the cost was traded known for the unknown in terms of the future.
Mm-hmm.
I think you said a few months ago that you didn't consider that a gamble.
I think, yeah, so...
Can you expound on that?
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is like, I thought it would be, I thought the real risk, tell me if I'm mistaken,
yeah,
but I thought the risk was not making a trade more so than making the trade. Yeah, I think it's pretty simple, to be honest with you, Barry. Like, there's only a few of these guys that exist on the earth that, you know, impact the game at that level. And you generally get those players through the draft, and a few places can get those players like via free agency with just the way the world works today. When you have such a unique and rare opportunity to acquire a player of that caliber, in our with where our team is currently, right, and what that player could potentially do for not only as an individual, but in terms of like connecting the rest of the team, the pieces that you have, I think it's something that you have to lean into, because I really believed in and think that our team last year had a pretty nice upside. But we would be building that team to maybe one day have a team as good as the one that we think this one could be. And I think in this industry, in this business, I think you have to understand that like things run in cycles, and you want to continue those cycles, but you also want to try to capture opportunity when you have it. And it's hard to acquire a player like that, and I think when you have a chance to do that, I think you have to be decisive. I think there's no way to do that in trade unless you're willing to take on some risk. But I think go into that eyes wide open, because it's rare to get a player of that caliber with where our team currently is, and with the fact that if things go well, like it could be the continuation of or an extension of a very long run of success in Oklahoma City, starting in 2009-10, so to speak. But I just think you've got to be willing to act when a rare opportunity comes along, because if you don't, you'll be waiting. You're kind of waiting for that opportunity, so to make your team as good as it could possibly be, and that's kind of like the way I look at it, and I think that it was something that we were ready to do, because we know how hard it is to win. We know how difficult it is to sustain the level of performance we've had. We know that one day, that's not going to be the case. You can't, very rare that some organizations can succeed at the level we have over a decade period of time. Every year we can continue that, to me, is important for our fans, is important for our city. But we also have to understand that, our goal is still to sustain a certain level of success, and to be in a position where there's optimism and hope for the fans of the Thunder here and around the world.